Isn't that neat to be able to pray, to help us to find opportunities to serve? And help us to be better investors too. One thing, for those who are doing the MoneyWise tonight, I'm going to send these things around here. For those who are going, again, if you are married, you stay home and take care of the kids while your spouse goes, and then you sit and talk after that. I consider that the same thing. I've had a number of married couples who came back and they said, yeah, we talked for 45 minutes just on the things that we're doing. So I think that's good use of time. Let me share a thought. This is from Peter Lynch. He wrote this. He said, everyone has the brain power to make money in stocks. Not everyone has the stomach. If you are susceptible to selling everything in a panic, you ought to avoid stocks and stock mutual funds altogether. I'd like to add something to that. I add, everyone can develop the ability to be a better and a more successful investor. It is not rocket science. It is learning principles of successful in investing and then following them closely. Your biggest threat to successful investing can be seen in the mirror each morning. And that's why we want you to build this investment plan. That's why we're doing it, trying to alleviate the fear and greed. That's why we teach the way we teach. And so just some thoughts. Let me introduce our speaker today. When I first came here to BYU, I taught about investing in, and one of the students, was it Freddie? Yeah. Freddie Hockenjos came to me and he says, you know, my dad is a portfolio manager and he does a lot of investing and insurance. He says, you ought to have him come and speak. And I said, yeah, well, next time he comes to, he says, let me talk to him. He says, I'd love to talk to him. And so Fred came. Within 2 minutes of talking to him, I knew he needed to be here. And so for the next 3 or 4 years, he'll come 3 times a year. He's from back east, New Jersey, and yet he has clients out here, so he works his clients around our class. And then what was really funny out there, I had a daughter who was dating this, or her missionary went on a mission, and he just happened to be in Fred's ward. Fred was the ward mission leader. And they were just sitting here talking, and Fred said, well, you have a girlfriend? And this Taylor, he said, yeah. And he goes, what's her name? And he said, Natalie Sudweeks. Fred goes, is this the Sudweeks who teaches at BYU? So it's amazing things there. So as soon as he figured that out, I got a phone call. And we noticed that connection. So it's amazing. It's a small world. And so Fred's come 3 times a year for the last, 12 years. So I'm very appreciative of the time and the effort and the resources that he spends to come. So we titled this Life Happens. Can we have a big hand for Fred Hockenjos? Fred, I hate to say it, I'm gonna give you this.
Oh, okay. Whatever I have to do.
Well,
12 years. I can guarantee you no 2 classes have ever been the same. I appreciate your prayer. I do take a lot of things very seriously, as you do too. And the reason every class that I've had the privilege of being here and visiting has been different is because I start the preparation by praying. And I should probably have written a book of the wonderful things that I've learned by being here. And then just read it myself, because most things just benefit us more than anyone else. I'm sure you all understand that. It's always an interesting challenge to know how to get started. I never have trouble finishing because I never finish. Never have enough time. But I like to run, and the quote that came today from my running, whatever, you all know what all these things are, apps and stuff. It shows up on here. Endurance is not just the ability to bear a hard thing, but to turn it into glory. That's a good theme for today. I was trying to figure out, I've never really did this before on these 12 years, but I decided to prayerfully determine for myself what did personal finance actually mean. And I came up with a definition. Did I write it down? Most of the time, no, I don't. I went to finish my preparation for this class in Provo Canyon yesterday. I went running after my business appointments. And I like to run past Bridal Veil and up to wherever, Vivian, but there was too much snow, and 10 years ago I'd have run through the snow. This time I stopped. Just didn't want to fall. But I'd run a couple of miles from where I'd started, and I'm walking back, and I'm going to start again at Bridal Veil and run back to my car. And I'm walking and relaxing and thinking and pondering. And I did something very peculiar for me. I stopped walking. Those of you who've been up there, there's a real nice wooden fence that looks down onto the, is that the Provo River? Okay. Not only did I stop walking, but I stopped everything. I actually put my foot up on the rail. I remember doing that. And I leaned on it, and I looked over at the water, and the sun is starting to set. And I went, wow, you need to do this more often. I actually just stopped everything. Tried not to even think. It was an interesting experience. We live very busy lives. I recently just read an article about how you compare American vacations, corporate America, and their approach from HR for vacations, and compare it to the rest of the world, and the rest of the world thinks we're absurd in the lack of vacations and the lack of doing other things. And that the average American is all about their career. And whenever asked a question, what do you do? The answer is all about career. I recently was talking to a young man who volunteers in the Manhattan Temple. I asked him, what do you do? He said, I am a husband. I said, what do you do? He said, I am the father of 2 glorious children. Third round, what do you do? And finally I realized by the look on his face that I was never going to find out how he earned an income. It wasn't going to happen. Fast forward a few months, and I'm reading an article, and it talks about that. And I thought, wow, how the Lord works. Something to think about, what we really do focus on. I know this from that, I always forget which of the prophets was working in the welfare center or whatever, and was asked by somebody, what will we, or he just offers up, would you like to know what the questions will be on Judgment Day? And obviously, career has 0. It's not in there. Just a question of whether we did it with integrity. Not just. That's a minimizing word. It's all about whether we did it with integrity. So, finance. I came up with righteous management. Great. Righteous management of assets. And then I really started pondering, and I was wondering about that thing. Because I went, now wait a minute, now I'm being recorded. So the adversary showed up and said, well, you better be careful, because you might say something wrong.
I do it all the time.
And then I decided that I've been through that enough times that you dismiss the adversary and you move on, because that's the formula for moving forward. And I wanted to understand better prayerfully what liabilities were, because that's the other part of the balance sheet. And those, so let's talk about these assets. You've heard this since you were in primary, those of you that are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which maybe we'll talk about a little bit further. Hi. My wife and I joined the church 35 years ago in New Jersey. I'm not going to ask you the question. I'm going to tell you the answer. I'm 61 years old. Doesn't mean I have any more experience than you do, but I'm going to tell you the answer. Make sure you get it loud and clear. Don't debate it. And I don't usually speak like that. Every asset you've had or have comes from Father in heaven. End of conversation. But where do the liabilities come from? Now that's where I was getting a little confused yesterday in final preparation for today. There's a big part of liabilities come from choice. Yes? No? What do you think? Well, no matter what, here your answer would be correct as you dig deep into liabilities. If I choose to go out for dinner and choose to buy whatever it is that I want to eat, for a moment that's a liability and it has to be paid for by an asset, and you obviously, the other key principle we want to make sure we understand is that when these exceed these, we have that monstrous word called debt. And again, let me make it real clear. You don't ever want that in your life, period. Now, do you think all liabilities come from your choices? That's where I was getting a little confused yesterday. So let's dig a little deeper. "25 years ago, Heather Hockenjos, who is now 26, was sitting as a baby between my wife and I, and she shivered. So we thought she had wet her diaper and shivered. That was the first of what, in round numbers, I've now calculated over the next 25 years of her life. That was the first of over 50,000 seizures. Heather is autistic, epileptic. She's been through 2 complete neurological workups, which means hospitalizations and every test known to mankind and just on a bunch of stuff. And I've had neurologists be willing to close the file, not worry about lawsuits, and talk to me openly, and they go, "We don't have a clue. What's wrong with your daughter?" Now, so 3 neurological workups. She's also been through what I call 2 spiritual workups, where the bishop and the stake president have fasted and prayed and to try to determine what her status should be here on earth. So she's 26 years old and not baptized. So, if my wife and I die today, that proverbial die while you go to the movies routine, Freddie, Kevin, Cheryl, and Laura are married, but that's irrelevant to this point. They are past the age of high school and they have moved on, and I am not, from the society that I live in, responsible for them. Correct? Unless I choose to send them a birthday present or help them with a mortgage payment or whatever. That's a choice, but not a responsibility. Each of you are here, and I'm sure if we dug deep, the tuition is being paid a multiple different ways. Some parents are fronting it all for you. Some are loaning it. Some said, "Have a good life." All right? Nobody's right or wrong. hopefully everybody prayed about it and are doing what's best for you. But with Heather, Heather needs to go somewhere responsible that can nurture her and help her, and she needs to show up with a whole bunch of money. If you were to say that it costs $50,000 a year to support her, and her average lifespan is the same as yours, so let's just keep life simple. Let's say she has another 50 years of life. So 50 times $50,000, that's a lot of money. Now, the goal always is for you not later to go, wasn't he in the middle of a sentence and never finished? Because I'll have about 30 of those in the next 15 minutes, and then I hope I'll answer them all and finish the rest of the sentence. But if I don't, and one of them actually intrigued you, you can, and also if you are bored, you can try to figure out what those 4 letters stand for. But if you're intrigued by something that I didn't finish, feel free to ask afterwards. There are 3 dictionaries, in my opinion. Thought a lot about this. There is the Webster Dictionary, or whoever, or whatever. The earthly dictionary that gives us a basis to understand the human language. Okay? Everybody agree? We look that up. We want to see what a word is. You all have your ability to do that with your machines these days. You know, I went to Duke University without a cell phone or a computer, and I got through there somehow. I don't. My goodness. They're number 2. Gonzaga's number 1 right now. We'll see what happens. We're really not that good. I wouldn't necessarily take them as far as you might want to in the. Remember Lehigh last year? Anybody care about basketball? Yeah, we're going to leave that sentence in the middle and not finish it. 3 dictionaries. Webster's. Then there's my son Kevin. I found out he reads the Bible dictionary every day. That's a great dictionary. And in addition to that, to expand that, you have the Holy Ghost, Father in heaven, and Jesus Christ, your A team, your team that's always with you, and you have the Bible dictionary. And that's your ultimate dictionary. But there's a 3rd one that I've thought a lot about, and that's Satan's dictionary. And so we take words like obedience, missionary work, endure, suffer, sacrifice, liabilities, righteous. There's a whole ton of words in Satan's dictionary, and he has. I'm just going to keep moving and at least make you work up there, okay? Like I said, I wish I had aisles because I'd be going and sitting down next to people till you crank your neck and hurt it. I don't mean that. Thank you. Satan's dictionary really disturbs me because he's taken gorgeous words and distorted them so badly that if I did an experiment and went to a stake conference and stood at the pulpit and I said, hi, I'm Brother Hockenjos. The stake president asked me today to speak to you for a few minutes about missionary work. If there's 2,000 people there, I guarantee you 1,000 of them push the off button immediately. Or I've been asked to talk to you about tithing. Or we're going to talk today about obedience. Off button, off button, off button. These are some of the most glorious principles and beautiful words that the Lord ever created for us to enjoy and embellish and learn and embrace, and Satan has destroyed them. So, is Heather a liability? Well, that sounds horrible from Satan's dictionary. But when we talk about liability in a personal finance class, $50,000 times 50 years is a lot of money. Was that my choice to have Heather come into my financial budget and put this big event in my liability column? Was that my choice? If I go out and buy the car that you just got because I covet what you did, and I assume a $600 a month bank payment, that was my choice. And I've got consequences for that. Now, if my assets are $400,000 a year, I'm probably okay. I'll let you work with the correlation between Heather and choice. As far as her dad is concerned, she's a liability on a financial budget sheet. But I don't like the way it sounds because of Satan's influence. If I didn't have Satan's influence, then I would have no problem calling her a liability. But I would never want, you follow me? You see where it gets confusing, the three dictionaries? It really is a battle here on earth because you can turn to your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your girlfriend, your spouse, and you can speak so clearly and wonder why they just stormed out of the room. I said I love you. No, you said you hate me. What? I don't get that. Well, welcome to the dictionary. It goes on all the time. So, righteous management of assets, every asset you have comes from Father in heaven. You're learning in this class how to righteously manage your assets. It's a test. This is good training. But it's a test that will help determine what you do in eternity, how you handle those assets. Don't take it lightly. Don't take it lightly. Each of those assets is a privilege, and Satan wants you to think that you did it. So the other day I'm driving, and I take a car into a gas station of my neighbor's for him to check it out because it failed inspection in New Jersey because the hooky pook light was on. And so it automatically fails. I didn't know that. So I asked him to check it out. And I said to him, let me just check the trunk, make sure there's not $100,000 in it that you guys would be tempted to steal. And we popped the trunk, and there's a TV that I'm trying to get rid of, but you can't put it out at the curb in New Jersey because of some regulation. So I need to take it somewhere, but I haven't ever gone through and done that. So he, like most gas station owners that are just able to get everything done so well, he just doesn't talk to me anymore. He lifts it out of the car, and he says, taken care of. And he puts it next to his dumpster, and he says, this will be gone in a couple of hours. And then he proceeds to tell me a story, and I told him that I would be using it on Thursday and thanked him very much. He has an 11-year-old nephew who goes around and cuts the wires off of anything people put out at their curb. Cuts the wire off. 11 years old. I guess he rides around on his bike or whatever. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, where are we going here? So in his last accumulation of wires and turning them into the salvage place or wherever you, I didn't know you could, you know, how people collect cans and bottles. And you do it a lot in New York City. You see people doing that, going with their plastic gloves, going through the garbage, and then have no idea how much money they make. This young man at 11 years old got $132 for the wires he took to the salvage place. So, what's the message there? Once in a while, I have felt sorry for myself for my inability to have the money that I would like to have. I'm sure you've never had that experience. However, if you have, you're in trouble for the rest of your life if you have a good memory, because you can always remember the 11-year-old boy that goes around on his bike and cuts wires and made $132. That's quite a story. I was extremely, extremely impressed. So, to me, there's a lot of messages in that story, but clearly one is get up and do something, and you'll be guided, and you'll figure it out, and you'll be able to make the money that you need. I have also noticed my all right, let's open up about 17 sentences. So, I go to Duke University, and I major in religion and economics. Let's go forward and then come back. My partner and I have a boutique company in New Jersey, and we currently provide every type of insurance, personal and commercial, known to mankind, all wealth management related opportunities, 401ks, investing people's, whatever, money, keep it simple. And a whole plethora, I love that word, of, I don't think that's, Satan cares about that word. I don't think that's in his dictionary. A whole plethora of other benefits, from payroll to credit card processing to helping drive revenue back to companies. Gotten blessed with a lot of wonderful people, high integrity, have contracts with all these people. I have a contract with Wells Fargo. I have a contract with 2 or 3 major insurance operations, which allows me at any moment to be them. So although I'm a small boutique, if somebody from General Motors called and said they needed help with their insurance, which I almost thought might happen one day, because at one point the head of General Motors was a good friend of the coach at Duke, and blah, blah, blah. I can handle any case, small or large, because of the relationships the Lord has blessed me with. We've had clients as large as Black & Decker and as small as the local dry cleaner. What's the key principle to our organization that Bruce and I have been blessed to build? Recognizing where all of that comes from, and my partner blaming me for some of those. Now I don't even know what that sentence was I was just saying. How do I complete it? Adding value. That's what we get up to do every day. Add value. That's our simple but complete motto. Instead, I was ward mission leader. I was blessed to add to my family about 40 surrogate sons and daughters. Live all over the world now. I've seen 4 or 5 of them so far since I've been out here. One of them works for a company out here. Called and said, do you handle health insurance? They have about 60 employees, so I was there with the director of HR yesterday. And she said, do you handle key man insurance? I said, we could probably figure that out. Yes, we do that that's a normal thing that we do. And so all sorts of opportunities, and that's how we built our business and are very blessed with those types of events. So Bruce Jones, my partner, was my Gospel Essentials teacher the first day I walked into a Mormon church to investigate it. That's where that sentence gets finished. Okay. So that's when I met Bruce. Bruce was born here in Salt Lake City. He got married. He moved to New Jersey to be an insurance adjuster for a little while. Figured that New York City and all of that stuff out there that we have would not be very appealing. He still lives there. He enjoys living there very much. He, first year of marriage, his wife was diagnosed with MS. And tough trial. Interesting principle there. House of order, the church, right? So regardless of what we might think President Monson or Elder Bednar or might have over somebody else, that's not proper thinking. You ask your home teacher to give a blessing, right? That's the house of order. You go to your home teacher. Bruce's home teacher back then was an inactive member of the church who put his cigarette out when he walked up the sidewalk because Bruce had called him to help administer to his wife who had been diagnosed with MS. Can you imagine that that might be a little bit of a strain? I don't know. You might be at a righteous level where you would think, I'm nuts. But for me, that just might be a little bit of a strain. First of all, I have my wife with this diagnosis. I believe in all the principles of the gospel, and he's putting his cigarette out, and Father in heaven has just inspired me to have him seal the anointing, not do the anointing. And for one moment, I turned to Father in heaven and I said, are you sure? Which you never need to ask Father in heaven. But we are, I don't like that phrase, but we are human. Okay, so Bruce follows the instructions of the Lord, and of course we don't measure the result of a blessing by our earthly results. But in this particular case, Tamara went into full remission. They had 6 beautiful children. Then it came roaring back in her 40s, and she died an ugly death. I'm going to guess about 12 years ago. Today's St. Patrick's Day? When's St. Patrick's Day? 17th, right? Sunday. She died on St. Patrick's Day. Which, interesting enough, is the day my daughter Heather, who was age 9 at the time, so it is a long time ago, not many more years than I thought, seizure stopped. Interesting correlation. And she didn't seize outwardly for about 4 or 5 years and was able to progress out of diapers and different things. And it was just a wonderful blessing in our lives because Heather could get to the point where she is today. It was a lot more challenging for Heather in her lifestyle when she was 7, 8, 9 years old and unable to do the things that we take for granted. So, back to Duke. So that's our business. That's what we do. And back to how I met Bruce. So we walked into the, Kathy was born, my wife, into a family with, her maiden name is Richards, which goes back to Willard and LeGrand and those people that you probably don't remember unless you're good church historians. You shook your head, so that's good. But some pretty strong historical figures in the church. But Kathy was raised a Catholic. She has a Mormon father, a Catholic mother, and she's met this guy at Duke University that's a religion major and an economics major, and she just hangs in there. And then she hears that this guy that she's dating, me, in case you hadn't gotten that, has just been accepted at Princeton, and I'm going to Princeton Theological Seminary to become a Protestant minister. So you got that real quick? We got a Mormon father, a Catholic mother. She's raised a Catholic, so Kathy's a very good Catholic girl because she adheres to whatever she's taught if she has belief in it and confidence in the people that are surrounding her. And she's got a Protestant minister fiancé potential. All right, so I go to call Duke University and have them send some stuff that Princeton needed. And in that moment, you know, the life happening moments, the phone was actually ringing. Do you all know what a phone is? A landline phone? This is a white Princess phone on a little cherry desk in my sister's bedroom. And I think one of my children has a landline. Only one. They never answer it. But I don't know why I even call it. They don't answer anything. Maybe a text. But while I have that phone ringing, I have an overwhelming impression to put the phone down and not go to Princeton. And I follow that. I go into the insurance business with my dad. My wife and I get married in a Methodist church on River Road in Bethesda, Maryland. Take a tour of the Washington, D.C. temple because of her father's influence, because it hadn't been dedicated yet. So the entire wedding party took a tour of it, not knowing that we would be back there later to be sealed. And so we moved to New Jersey. Kathy's a coronary intensive care unit nurse. I'm in the insurance business with my dad, and we decided to investigate the Mormon Church for a lot of reasons, but the primary one was to get Kathy's brother and father off of her back and actually do what they had asked us to do. We were very, very, it was a glorious experience to meet with the missionaries and take the discussions. We went to church, met Bruce Jones, was my Gospel Essentials teacher, and we investigated, I hate that word, but we were involved in the Mormon Church for 3 years. And we joined because a bishop asked us to, I'm a big basketball fan, he asked us to go one-on-one with Heavenly Father and remove ourselves from all earthly influences of our Mormon and non-Mormon worlds, because they were both very strong in our lives. Not the least of which was my employer, my best friend, and my dad, who was telling me, we both started investigating the church together. And he didn't believe it, and that was hard. So between Kathy's mom and my dad, we were very encumbered to hear what the Lord wanted us to do. So by being asked to go one-on-one on a Sunday afternoon in the bishop's house and divorce ourselves from all earthly influences was something I'd never heard of. Never heard of how you could do that. In doing that, my wife and I literally in a flash of a moment, 10 seconds, turned to the bishop and said, be baptized. So we were baptized 2 weeks later. My father told me I might as well be dead, and the journey continued. So that's a little bit of my background. We have 5 children and 14 grandchildren. Bruce Jones is currently stake president. Did I tell you that? That's been cool. His door closes a lot more now in the office. So let's go to, we'll come back to those stories a little bit, but let's go to some of these. The other day, 3 weeks ago, I'm sitting in my office and I hear a familiar voice. A man by the name of Art Linderman, client of ours, had been branch president of our Spanish branch for years, then bishop when it became a ward, was currently young men's president, I believe. Stayed involved with this, but doesn't matter. Converted to the church from Judaism, heard his voice in my office. Came out here for a baptism of an 8-year-old grandson. Kissed his wife goodbye at the Salt Lake City airport, left her here to be with the family, and flew home 3 weeks ago Sunday. Texted at 2 in the morning his son-in-law and said, I don't feel good and I won't be at the gym in the morning to work out. At noon on Monday, the son-in-law went to the house and found him dead in his bed. Thursday of that week, I am at the funeral home looking at Art laying in his casket, dressed in white. And I've just got a lot of thoughts. The last thing we want to do is take the wonderful things you're learning here and create some type of morbidity or fear or concern, but we want to create reality. Life happens. Bruce is now trying to help manage the affairs of the family. He was an attorney without a secretary. He was running everything himself. So voicemails are still coming. I mean, life's happening, right? Never understood the fact that I sat up all night with my German Shepherd in the operating room, went through 2 operations, got a call at 10 in the morning as I'd finally come home, and my German Shepherd had died. And 2 weeks later, I got a bill for $400, and it just bothered me. Does the veterinarian not deserve this $400 for doing the surgery? Of course he does. But it just bothers me to this day. Not from Satan's dictionary, the word bother. And I don't know what dictionary. It just bothers me. There's a message there that continues to grow and be taught. I've got 3 that I've mentioned in other classes here. Let me just go through a couple of quick things. Early in my career, I met with my brother-in-law and 2 of his friends at Fort Dix Medical Center. They were in medical school. And I sold them what was the best disability policy on the face of the earth. It doesn't exist anymore because the actuaries realized that they were going to lose their shirts. Because what happened in disability insurance was originally created for the physical disability. And then when the legal world allowed mental disability to be paid, it shocked the world, okay? So stress, depression, those types of things were being allowed to cause you to go out on disability and claims to be paid. And so these policies were removed. All 3 of those doctors, all those 3 became doctors. All 3 have gone out on disability. Okay? One's getting $7,000 a month tax-free, has for the last 10 years. Will never go back to an operating room again. Can do anything else he wants because of the way the disability policy is written. One was got a liver illness, and one went to pick, the one that I'm talking about, the first one had a seizure driving his son to a store and had an accident with a car. One went to pick up his daughter at 1 o'clock in the morning at someplace in Philadelphia, and she was being attacked, and he jumped out to protect his daughter and ended up being severely injured. And like I said, the third one had a liver situation. I can go on and on with stories in my career of people that have had claims or houses that have burned. I had a roofer that I insure. He calls me and he goes, house is burning down. I go, okay. And Lehigh beat Duke. I mean, you know, I figure he's just kidding with me. He goes, Fred, the house is burning down. So I get in the car and I go to where the address is. He had been up doing the roof and he had a torch and he hadn't brought the hose up with him that he's supposed to bring, and it was a drought in New Jersey. So somehow the torch hit a leaf and a bird's nest, and in seconds the house was in the roof. We stood there and watched the house burn to the ground with the owners standing next to us. And so we paid out, I don't know, $800,000, something like that. Life does happen. That's what the syllabus says. You're doing budgets, you're learning investments, you're talking about insurance. You're learning, if Kevin were here, sometimes my sons come and help do this, and they do a great job, but Kevin would stand here with his book. You still do the book, right? He stands here with his book and he goes, how many people can take something from college and say, I use this book with my wife, Hallie, 2, 3, 4 times a year, and every year, and now he's in his early 30s, okay? What you're learning here is essential. How about the principle of talking about finances with your spouse. Have you gotten to that yet in class?
That's next week.
Next week. Good. Precursor. Number 2 cause of divorce in this world is money. Okay? Number 2 cause of divorce in this country is money. So do you think that it would be important to meet with your spouse? And in a perfect world, and there's no reason your home can't be as close to perfection as you decide it to be, and have a prayer and talk about the assets that the Lord has given you. Nobody takes ownership of them in the marriage. It has no place in a marriage. What we've been blessed to receive, and prayerfully decide how to use it within making good choices so the liabilities are in line with the Lord. And in doing that, you have no idea what you're doing by doing that. And you don't need to. You don't need to know what it's like to get hit by a truck in the middle of the highway to know not to go stand in the middle of the highway. Okay, you don't need to go do that. But you don't need to know what it's like to take ownership of money or to use that as a power in your home or any of the horrible things the adversary can create through money. But just so you can understand a little bit of how this works. But honey, I did it for you. I can't tell you how many divorces I'm seeing right now of people that have been married for 20, 25, 30 years. I go, you kidding me? You did it for me. What did you do for me? Well, you wanted that house. You wanted that car. You said that when we were dating or whatever. So I heard that, and I did this all for you. So you've put in those 18 hours a day and never come home. You don't know your kids very well. You don't know me very well, but you did that for me. I didn't want that. Well, they would have worked that out if they were meeting weekly. It would never have happened. And if you think that's Hollywood or not really happening, you're wrong. It's happening every hour of every day. People are inappropriately treating each other in a marriage because of money. It's a horror. It's an absolute horror. So, that's important. All right. I did make notes. Let's just see if I'm following anything. Okay. Okay. Things did work out pretty well between my dad and I. He remained my boss. I remained working for him. We had a, do you all have memories of every, I mean, like I told you, there's a white Prince's phone. I mean, do you have, can you smell it, taste it, and touch it, certain things in your life? I mean, as if you were there right now. Hartshorn Elementary School. Driveway goes, we drove from our office to Hartshorn in a green station wagon. Mom, Dad, me. In a perfect world, I should have had my wife. That would have been a smart thing for me to do in hindsight. Always include your spouse when somebody like your parents want to talk to you and you're married. Show that it's you and your wife. And they said, okay, you join the church, here's the rules. I said, okay. And the rules were we don't talk about religion and we move on with our lives. We'll just put that away. I was at a Friday night Relief Society event. The next day, one of our children was being baptized. A couple was singing The Power of Music. And while the song was going on, Father in Heaven shows up inside of Fred and verbalizes, ask your father to say the prayer at the baptism. That's a little bit like Bruce Jones being told to let the guy who's smoking out on the sidewalk before he comes in to seal a blessing to to seal the blessing. Those are moments, you know? Ask your dad to say the prayer. So, what a glorious day that was when my father went up and said the closing prayer of my daughter Laura's baptism. Amazing experience. Do you know how much I hurt my dad? I finally got it. Imagine if my son were to call me right now and say he was going to a different religion. I mean, it isn't all about us. It really isn't all about us, is it? I hurt my dad so badly. I crushed him. And he still loved me. It wasn't about, oh, wow, I wish Dad was going to church with me and pat me on the back and that I had brought him this great religion and blah, 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 blah. I crushed my dad. I have wept over that. I did the right thing, but I crushed my dad. And for him to stay by my side and support me. And then one thing, he'd come hear me speak at church, and he'd come watch me coach the young men. And I was a young men's basketball coach before I was a member. That was cool. And you could watch. I was blessed to see the promises of the Lord while my dad was still alive. That was neat. I didn't have to wait to see our love and our relationship with Father in heaven all soften and grow. To the point where my dad and I were driving to North Carolina for a business trip in August. He died at Thanksgiving that year. And Dad had one of the early cell phones, and he was going through some medical challenges and had an appointment with a doctor. We found a place on the highway where he could hear some cell area where it actually was working. And it was right near a hotel. And so I went in, they had a payphone, which I know you don't know anything about. And I called my wife and I said, I need your help. I don't know what's going on. She said, I already know and I've already prayed. I got back in the car. Dad had finished his phone call, and we continued our drive to North Carolina, and I bore my testimony to my dad for the first time in my life. And he turned to me with tears in his eyes and almost shaking, and he said, I am so happy that you are at such peace. He died suddenly in November of that year, and I've had sacred experiences since then, and if you had told me that I could have the relationship I have with my dad beyond my wildest imagination. Have we been told that? That things are coming that are beyond our understanding? To hang in there? That the celestial kingdom is a pretty cool place? Did you catch earlier? Let's finish another sentence. I'm the father of a celestial child. Don't know how many of those people that you've met, but you've met one today. Maybe I needed the extra motivation to be righteous. But you're looking at a human being that yearns for the privilege to sit in the proverbial park bench in the celestial kingdom with his daughter and meet her for the first time and talk about this earthly life. Those, well, maybe this shouldn't get taped. Those scars right there are from my daughter's fingernails. If you were to look at my wife's arm, they're covered, both of them, with those scars. Heather is not accountable. She doesn't understand behavior. And when she's frustrated, she squeezes and her nails cut your skin. Bleeds for a little while and it scabs and it leaves that scar. You can literally go up to Heather and go, you know, we've tried to teach her by consequence and go, you know, you did this. She'll even ask you, how did that happen? How did you get a cut? She has no clue. Okay? She can't be taught by consequence. What an opportunity to be her father. What an opportunity to learn and grow and understand life and understand and embrace the gospel. Without the Holy Ghost as our language, I can't communicate with Heather. I walk in the house, sometimes she goes, you shouldn't live here. She says all sorts of random things. The Holy Ghost helps you understand what she's actually saying. She's saying, I was taking a nap and you're disturbing me. Could you please go to the other room? I'm tired. But she's saying, you and Mom need to get a divorce and you should not be in this house. I hate you and could get violent. All she's saying is, you woke me up from my nap. Interesting. We do this hour after hour, day after day. My wife is an angel. Heather has been and will be an instrument to take lots of people to the celestial kingdom. The church has a program that calls people to take care of special needs members of the ward. I don't know if you know that. But each of the individuals that has been called as Heather's grown, she had when she was in Young Women, she had an advisor that worked just with her. You go and you meet with these people that have had these callings to work with Heather, and they just cry. They weep and tell you sacred stories of things that have happened. I'll share one with you that I hope will be appropriate and maybe pull a lot of what we're talking about together here. We were flying from Dallas to Newark Airport, and she had 9 grand mal seizures. If any of you have ever seen someone have a grand mal seizure, I'm sorry, because that's hard to watch. It must be horrific to go through. Heather had 9 on that flight, and that was a horror in the sky. So we're met on the proverbial tarmac by an ambulance, and suddenly I'm in the front seat, my wife's in the back. They're doing all sorts of things to Heather, and off we're going to Beth Israel Hospital. My son had lived in New Jersey at the time. He worked with Pfizer, and he had been prompted, and he came to the airport and followed the ambulance to Beth Israel and was by my side and my wife's side. And let's fast forward this about 24 hours. Things have calmed down. Heather's calmed down. She's been through things that I never thought I would see in my life. She had to be tied down. That's tough. You know, see one of your children go through something like that. And so we're in an intensive care unit, just her and I. I've been assigned to record her seizures. Her normal seizures, once we got the grand mal under control, that's what they have been able to control. She hasn't had one of those in a couple of years, but she has petite mal seizures, normally nocturnally, where she goes, and she'll do that for anywhere from 2 minutes to 20 minutes or so, and try to get away from them. You hear her moving throughout the house and suffering. So at this point, It's her and I in a large room, lots of machines, exhaustion, obviously for her and for me in different ways. And I've got pieces of paper, which I should have brought, and I'm recording the seizures. And what they are is she's laying there, suddenly her head comes up 2 or 3 inches, her body shakes, she goes through this little whatever, not a whatever for her, and puts her head back down and goes back to sleep. So that's a line, and then another line. And this is going on every 3 minutes for hours. My process was, my head was about where her knee is, between her knee and her waist. And I would make my line, Father in heaven, please let that be her last seizure. I'd put my head back down and I'd fall asleep for a second. A minute or so later, she'd have another seizure. I'd draw the line, I'd say the prayer, and I'd put my head back down. Now here's somebody who doesn't communicate very well at all, okay? And she's been through this. And I put my head back down on that mattress after hours of this process. And suddenly her right arm comes out and touches my shoulder. And she speaks, "It's okay, Dad. It's okay, Dad." I have those sheets of paper that sit underneath my blotter in my office. I hope these stories are impacting you the way the Lord needs them to in your individual lives. That's what I pray about when I come here. That's what I don't understand, why I'm not just talking business. This is a business class. And often I go, why do I do that? Is that right? Is that correct? And then, you know, you have the adversary and the whole bit, and you go, wait a minute. Do you know who you are? You're the group that I got the privilege of being a early morning seminary. We do that in New Jersey. Any of you guys do an early morning seminary? Are any of you from better places than where you get to do it at 2 in the afternoon? No. Early morning seminary is what you did? So 6 o'clock in the morning, then off to school. I did that for, my wife and I still, not argue, but she said I did it 5 or 6 years. I've done institute. I've had privileges of teaching you, just not you. But I've prayed hard to know who you are. And I know, and you're about to connect, that you've been told for a long time that you're special. Correct? Tired of it? Has it bothered some of you? Absolutely it has. Some of you are sick and tired of it and never liked that label and don't like being told you're special and have no interest in it. Let me tell you why. Because the guy that wrote that horrible, dark dictionary also is aware that you are special. And when you go outside and the water spigot in your house that you connect a hose to is on full, what do? Turn it off. Nobody in this room wouldn't just go get in their car. They would turn it off. But if there's a cinder block under it and it's dripping 1 drip of water every 10 minutes, you wouldn't even notice it. But over a period of time, that cinder block will be reduced to dust. You're special, Satan knows it, and you're smart enough not to sit under a full turned on faucet. And so, what happens in operating rooms is happened to you. Some of you more than others. But nice and quietly, Satan puts the needle in and gives you anesthesia and deadens you. And that feels good when that tooth is being drilled and you've got the Novocaine. That's a good thing. And so quietly, the anesthesia is administered to this group of special people. And you become anesthetized to who you are. You are special, and there's nothing you can do about it. Okay? I remember teaching a seminary class once, and I went, you go into 7-Eleven. You look to your left. You look to your right. Nobody around. Probably before they had cameras. You steal something. You go outside, it's in your pocket, you eat it, you do whatever you want to with it, you got away with it. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. One more time. No, you didn't. Whether you want it or not, you can get an attorney and you can try to sue the A-team. But they have a right to your thoughts, and they have a right into your life. And you can't do anything about it. You want to sue Father in Heaven for an infringement of privacy? Go right ahead. You are special. Satan knows it. And I want you to understand that you can recover from anesthesia. It goes away. Sometimes, if you've not handled the anesthesia well, it was nice to have that tooth drilled and not hurt, but you've destroyed your gum because you bit it for the next 4 or 5 hours. Some of you know what I'm talking about? All right. This is not a, you're special. You need to understand that. There's nothing you can do about it. You can make choices on whether you want to fulfill what you're here for. I highly recommend you do it because you'll be very, very happy. And you'll have experiences like I'm having with my dad that I never knew could happen. Be yourself and be special. I commend you for being here at this school. I commend you for taking this class. If I were to ask you if you waste an hour a day, would we have a lot of discussion on that? I think we could figure out that you probably, and waste, again, I don't care what dictionary you use, you could use an hour a day better than you do, okay? If there are 6 billion people, if there are 6 billion people on the earth, and Satan is able to get everybody to inappropriately use an hour a day, do the math when you have some time later today. Take 6 billion hours and divide it by 24 and see how many days you come up with. Or do anything you want with it, but get the impact. Take just a moment and do that. How about take 50,000 missionaries for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and take 50,000 hours a day and divide that by 24. In case you're not getting this, one of my messages today is Satan is real and horrific and could care less and wants us to be as miserable now and forever as he is, and will do anything to take us down. We have everything we need to win, but we have to use it. The dripping that we talked about, the anesthesia that we talked about, 1 hour a day. Nobody notices it. Nobody realizes the great victory. Can you imagine 60,000 hours of missionary work? Or 50,000? How many missionaries do we have out now? I don't know. We have a lot. So imagine being able to stop 50,000 hours of missionary work a day. And no one even notices it. No one even sees it. Except the boys in Satan's office that are laughing. This goes in my journal every night two things go in my journal every night at the end. I like acronyms or initials or whatever. This has been in my journal every night. I've been doing a journal for, I don't know, somebody up there in the church headquarters said we ought to do a journal every day, so I said, okay. Somebody says I should read the Book of Mormon every day. Okay. Somebody said I should pray every day. Okay. I do those things, and they mean a lot to me. So in my journal for the last, whatever, 25 years, you'll see that, and over the last about 8 years since I've been, this was given to me in prayerful preparation for one of these classes. This stands for I love my family, and I write that every night before I go to bed. And this one stands for the antidote for wasting an hour. I don't know if we told you the story, but Freddie ran into somebody from one of your classes in Arizona that recognized him. Freddie's my son that started this and would do anything to be here today, but couldn't. And he ran into somebody, and they looked at him, and bottom line is they said, reach your hourly potential. You guys taught us that. I had somebody once come up to me and say, I'm trying, and I'm exhausted. And I thought that was cool. This stands for reach your hourly potential. Elder Maxwell, some of you hopefully remember him. If you saw the Elder Bednar CES, that was really cool. Elder Maxwell talked all about diversion. That's the big tool Satan uses. Worry, fear, any type of weakness you might have is what the Satan uses to divert you. Cut the wire that this kid is using to make $132. We all are wired to Heavenly Father, okay? And Satan wants to cut the communication. I mean, it's not real complicated. If he can cut the communication, then you don't get to be telling President Monson stories of going to help people. The other day, I was inspired to go see a member of our stake. And I finished a meeting in Morristown, New Jersey, and was reminded, now it's time to drive a couple blocks and go see that person. I got there, his daughter was in the hospital and had just tried to commit suicide. Heavenly Father loves each of us and takes care of us if we trust. And there's a whole bunch of people out there that he's communicating with to help you and to help me. And Satan wants to cut those wires. Okay? It's real simple. It's real simple. So reach your hourly potential means don't live an hour before or this afternoon at 4 o'clock. I've used the 9/11 example. They didn't get an extra hour, right? They had 1,000 things. There was 1,000 life-happening things going on in those buildings when they went down, right? People had been, some people in there were terminally ill and were very concerned. They had 6 months to live. Others were about to get engaged. Others were about to get divorced. Others were about to commit adultery. Others were about to go on a vacation with their family. There was everything in those buildings. Reservations for dinner to celebrate a birthday with your wife. Everything was in that building. And it went down, and it was over. That part of life. I don't use that for drama. I just want to make my point. Reach your hourly potential is what I challenge you all to do. So it's 9:15. You're special. Thanks for your time. And I'm glad you got to meet Heather today. Do you see the power she has? As she sits in her unaccountable world. I hope she's touched your hearts. Thanks for your time.